Shalom Sadiqim. I'm Rabbi Yosef Elia, and welcome to Jerusalem Hebrew's weekly reading of each week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Parashat TOLEDOTH. It is Genesis chapter 25, verse 19, through chapter 28, verse 9. We will read in a particularly slow reading so that you can master the pronunciation of each and every word in classical ancient Hebrew pronunciation. Do not confuse the pronunciation used in these videos with modern Hebrew pronunciation. Modern Hebrew is the same language as Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, but the pronunciation is a bit more simplified for practical reasons. Chapter 25, verse 19. Repeat after me. Ve'ele. Ve'ele. TOLEDOTH. TOLEDOTH. The shwa here is a sounded shwa. The two dots above each other underneath this letter lamed is called shwa. It indicates an unaccented syllable, or it indicates simply the end of a closed syllable. In this case, it indicates the unaccented syllable. So this we will call, for simplicity's sake, a sounded shwa. A sounded shwa is always the unaccented syllable in a word. This syllable we know is particularly accented. Not only is it not unaccented, but it's especially accented because it has this symbol right here, the method. All right, again, repeat after me. Ve'ele TOLEDOTH. So not toldot, but TOLEDOTH, 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 TOLEDOTH. We know it is a sounded shwa because it's preceded by a holam. Yish'ok, Yish'ok. This is Isaac. Yish'ok. Do not make the common mistake of saying Yitzhak, completely obliterating the consonantal sound of the letter het. So not Yitzhak and not Yitzchak, but Yish'ok, Yish'ok. Ben, Avraham, Avraham. 3 syllables. Avraham. Pause. We know it's a pause because we have the ethnaha here. Avraham, Avraham, Holiv, Eth, Yish'ok, Eth, Yish'ok. Let's read it one more time. وإلا تولدث يسحق ben Avraham. Avraham Holiv Eth Yish'ok. Now we will read it in the simplified transliteration. This transliteration is particularly made with the average native English speaker in mind who is not yet exposed to norms of Hebrew to English transliteration. So there are extra letters here that in many transliterations would not be here because standard transliterations assume that people know how to read them, which is usually not the case for our viewers or for most people who randomly purchased their first Jewish prayer book. So let's begin. You will read this just as you would expect according to the norms of English phonics. Ve'ele. Only difference is we are adding accent symbols like they do in Spanish over the accented parts of words. Ve'ele TOLEDOTH, TOLEDOTH, Yish'ok ben Avraham, Avraham Holiv Eth Yish'ok. One more time. Ve'ele TOLEDOTH Yish'ok ben Avraham, Avraham Holiv Eth Yish'ok. We'll read it one more time in the Hebrew, a little bit more of a natural pace. وإلا تولدث يسحق بن أبراهام Avraham believe F Yisroel. And one more time at a somewhat natural pace, but a little bit quicker than before. But تولدت يسحق then Avraham believe F Yisroel. Pasuk Haba. Next verse. Everybody say Pasuk Haba. Genesis chapter 25, verse 20. Repeat after me. Why he? Why he? يسحق يسحق بن بن أربعين شنا شنا بقحت three syllables بقحت أث أث رفقا أث رفقا بث بثؤال بث بثؤال ها أرمي. We're going to accent this hey. We know to accent it because it has this vertical line called a method. It tells you to accent this symbol, this syllable. There are other symbols that tell you to accent, such as what we call the cantillation marks. So this video assumes you've already learned to identify the vowels. So any symbol you see which is not a vowel, you can generally assume it is a cantillation mark. So cantillation marks also tell us which syllables in a word to accent. Ha, arami. And again, this has a shawa, the two dots on top of each other, which means under accent, unaccent. Ha, arami. The Aramaean. Mi padan, mi padan. Aram, aram. Ahuth, ahuth. Lavan, lavan. Ha arami. Ha arami. Le, le. Isha. Isha. Pasuk Abba. Well, no, we can read it in the transliteration. Let's go ahead. Repeat after me in the transliteration. You would read it as you would expect to read these combinations of letters in English. Why he يسحق بن أربعين شانا بقحت أث رفقا باث بثؤال ها أرمي مي پادان أرام أحث لاوان ها أرمي لإشا. Feel free to pause the video and go back to repeat as many times as you need to feel comfortable. Now we will read the verse again in a somewhat more natural pace, albeit still a little bit slower than normal. Why he يسحق بن أربعين شنا بقحت أث رفقا بث بثؤال ها أرمي مي پادان أرام أحث لاوان ها أرمي لإشا. One more time. Why he's حق بن أربعين شانا بقحت أثربقا بعث بثؤالها أرمي مي پادان أرام أحث لاوان ها أرمي لإشا. Pasuk Haba. Everybody say Pasuk Haba. Pasuk is a verse. Haba means the coming. That's also how we say next. So now we are on chapter 25, verse 21 of the book of Genesis. Repeat after me. Wa ye'tar. Wa ye'tar. Wa ye'tar. Three syllables. Ayin is not silent. يسحق يسحق لاذنوي. There's a common mistake. People try to pronounce the aleph here in the word Adonai. This letter is yud, but we read it as if it's an aleph. But this aleph would be silent because it has no vowel. Aleph is only pronounced as a glottal stop when it has a vowel in the same syllable associated with it. So not la Adonai, but la Adonai, la Adonai. Then chah, then chah, ishta, ishta, ki, aqra, ki, aqra, he. He. This is one of those examples where in the Bible, the vowelization does not match the uh, letter in the written text. So it looks like who. If you were just reading it, not knowing any better, you would think who. And the Hebrew word who means he, masculine. But it has the vowelization of the feminine form she, which she in Hebrew is he. Okay. He, aqara, he, which means she. ويعثر 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 ل ل أذنوي أذنوي وطاهر وطاهر ربقا ربقا اشتى اشتى. Let's read it in the transliteration. ويعتار يسحق لاذنوي. Right? There's no apostrophe here, so that lets you know there's no glottal stop. In our transliterations, we indicate glottal stops with apostrophes and also the letter ayin, but when it's an ayin, the apostrophe will be bolded, as will be the associated vowel. Ladhnoi. The n, underlined K's represent a sound. The n, and dotted hays represent the letter het. Het, not a silent H. The n, ish, te, ish, te, ki, عقراهي وتعثر لأذناي وطاهر ربقا إشتا إشتا. Feel free to play that again as many times as necessary to feel comfortable with the pronunciation of the words. Now let's read it again in the Hebrew and somewhat more of a natural pace. ويعتار ويعتار يسحق لذنوي لنخح إشتا كي عقراهي ويعثر لأذنوي وطهر ربقا إشتا. One more time. ويعتار يسحق لذنوي لنخح إشتا كي عقراهي ويعثر لأذنوي وطهر ربقا إشتا. Includes the slow articulated reading of the first three verses of this week's Torah portion, Parashat TOLEDOTH. Now we will review some key words selected from these first three verses in the parasha. Holiv, Holiv, Holiv. That means he begot, i.e. he procreated or he fathered. Holiv. Number two, Bakah, Te, Bakah, Te, Bakah, Te. The hey has a dot, the letter H has a dot under it. That's letting you know this is the letter het and not the letter hey. So this should not be a silent hey. It should be sounded like a very loud exhaling whisper. Bakah te, bakah te means when he took, and literally this is in the this is literally a noun, not a verb. So it's like at his taking, the O is possessive upon his taking. But in English, we'd express this as a verb when he took. Number 3, the isha, le, it's really li because the consonant following the lamed is a guttural letter, an aleph with the hirik. So that means that the sound of shavah that comes before adopts a shorter form of the vowel of the guttural letter that comes after it. That's only when the guttural letter comes after a shawah, the two little dots on top of each other, as you can see here. Right? The isha means as a wife. Literally, it means for a woman or for a wife, or to a woman or to a wife. But the Hebrew word for wife and the Hebrew word for woman are literally the same word. Number 4, lenechah, lenechah, lenechah means in front of or facing toward or in the direction of something. And here it may be understood in the sense of regarding or for. Lenechah. And finally, if there's any word in this week's Torah portion that you want to remember, is this 5th word, key, 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 just like a key you open doors with. And this word, if you learn it, it will indeed open doors for you in learning the Hebrew of the Bible, because this word is used in many different ways. In modern spoken Hebrew, it's most often used in the sense of because. It's also used in this way in the Bible, but in the Bible, it also has several other usages. Uh, those other usages are also used in modern Hebrew, but just not as frequent as the meaning of because. So let's review some of the meanings of this very useful word, ki. Make sure you write it down so that you can learn at least this word. Ki can mean because, as in its usage in these first 3 verses of the Torah portion. It can also mean that or when in the sense of a conjunction, not when as a question, but as a statement. Ki can mean that, when, for. It can also mean if or though or surely. But if, though, and surely are less frequent usages of this word ki. So that concludes this week's articulated reading, the first 3 verses of the Torah portion. Wishing you a blessed and meaningful Shabbat Shalom. Shalom uvracha.